Hey guys, welcome back to Ben and Brewing's channel. If you haven't been here before, we do product reviews, tutorials, and we have a live chat feature on our website to help you through your Brew Day 911s. Check it out at benandbrewing.com. Today's video, we've actually had a number of requests about master mode on the iGulu S1. We're answering those requests with a deep dive into the menu, some of the functionality, and we've got some feedback for iGulu on some things that maybe could be improved. Let's check it out. Okay, so before we dive into today's video, quick reminder, today's video is sponsored by iGulu. We'll have a 20% off coupon linked below. That is an affiliate link if you wish to purchase the iGulu S1 or F1. So for our Master Mode deep dive today, we're actually just covering the menu as it exists on the S1. We're not actually covering the phone app at all. We can do that at a later date. To be honest, I haven't been able to get much functionality out of the app as it currently exists, although it has improved quite a bit over the past couple iterations. I still feel like the control panel on the S1 is the best way to access your master mode. Make sure that your iGulu is running the most current version of its software. You can check that in the settings menu, and we'll cover that here in a little bit. But today's master mode kind of review, we're using app version 1.4.2. So make sure you're updated to the most current version. If yours happens to be newer than that, a lot of this still will apply, although we don't know what future changes will happen. All right, so let's dive into the S1's menu. And first things first, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and we're going to talk about how to update your software to the most recent version if you haven't done this already. Now, iGulu releases updates constantly. Sometimes they're weekly, sometimes they're a couple times a month, so it kind of depends, but make sure you're on the most current version because they've improved a lot of stuff from the Wi-Fi stability to the app integration and adding additional features and functionality to it. So make sure you are updating. So let's go ahead and run through that real quick. So once your iGulu is turned on, you're going to go to the menu. The settings menu is actually the very bottom, but instead of arrowing down, let's just hit up one time, and that'll take you to the settings button. Hit the check mark to get into the actual settings themselves, and we'll cover a lot of these here in a minute, but I want to go down to update, or upgrade, I think is how they have it listed. Upgrade. That is your software update. Click it. It'll do a little search, it'll check, and if there is a new version, it'll have that check mark so that you can download and update. Ours is on the most recent version, so it just shows the current version. That's the other way you can check to see what version you're on. So we're going to go back to the home screen. And there we go. All right, so let's start with the menu. We're going to go top, bottom. We're going to talk about some of the features, and I've got some feedback for iGulu as well. Some of this stuff that they have programmed in the software doesn't quite make sense, or the location seems a bit odd to me. So hopefully they listen, and hopefully this is something that they can either modify or fix or tweak a little bit. So let's start with fermentation. When you first turn on your iGulu S1, it's going to have fermentation as the first option. So we're going to go ahead and select that. And here we have create process. This is where master mode is really unlocked with this. This allows you to create your own fermentation schedule by specifying how many stages you want, so how many steps within the fermentation process, how many days, what temperature, what pressure you want it to be under. It really gives you kind of full control over your fermentation profile. So let's review each of those and kind of talk about what it does. So we're gonna go ahead and say yes, create process, stages. You can have 1, 2, or 3 stages. Basically what that is, it's a set schedule of temperature, pressure, and time. And so you can do up to 3 of those. If you're just doing a very simple, some sort of simple fermentation, and you just want to ferment it out and then chill it, you can do that. What we're going to do today, just because we're messing around with it, you can go 2, you can make it 3, you can make it 1 stage. I'm going to keep it at 1 real quick as we step through so I can show you how to do that, but you can go up to 3 different stages. So we're going to say 1 stage. Allows you to set your temperature. So it's got it set at 60 right now. Let me just go ahead and bump that up to 80. There we go. And it does it in 2-degree increments, so you can get it dialed in pretty closely. The temperature range for this is from 38 on the low end to about 86 on the high end. So that's your fermentation temperature control range. So just keep that in mind as you're programming it. Once we say, sure, I want it to be at 80 degrees, hit the check mark, it'll move over to the duration. How many days do you want? And this can be 1 day to 30 days. So you can actually have it run for quite a while. I'm just gonna bump it up to 7, 6, 7. Click OK. Next, it's going to let you set the pressure for the fermentation. What this does is, with the pressure sensor that's on your keg, when it reaches a certain amount of pressure, it will actually release it so you don't overpressure. If you're doing a standard beer fermentation, 15 psi is definitely a good place to start, especially if you're pushing those temperatures up into the 80-degree range to make sure you get fast and clean fermentations. You can also set this down to 2 psi. And again, it does it in 2 psi increments. If you are wanting to do 0 psi, you can either put something under the vent, the emergency release vent, the pressure relief valve, to make sure it's venting. We also have a little tool on our website that we created that specifically fits the iGulu Triton keg. I'll have a link with that below, and that helps keep that pressure valve open throughout the entire fermentation. As far as the pressure monitoring goes, like I said, it goes 2 psi up to 22 psi. So it does give you quite a bit of a range to set whatever pressure that you want. If you're doing multi-stage with this, you could have the initial part of your fermentation be 2 psi, and then when it moves on to the second stage, you could actually, say, raise the temperature up and then allow it to free rise up to 10 or 15 psi. It gives you tons of options. On the reverse of that, you could start it out at a higher pressure, and then in second or third stage, then you actually have to release the pressure and go back down. I don't know why you'd want to do that, because if you want to capture that carbonation, you definitely want it to maintain that pressure, but you have that option if you're being creative and doing different things, and you maybe don't want that finished beverage that you're fermenting to be carbonated. So once you have your pressure set, it gives you the option to review. And as you can see from the screen here, we only did one stage, so it's just going to say stage 1, 87 days, 2 psi. If you had multiple stages on there, you would see the top option would be stage 1, the next option would be stage 2, and the third option would be stage 3. This is a way just for you to review it before you commit to that. Avoid CO2 during brewing. Yep, great to know. And now it is fermenting, basically. Now, I don't have a keg in there. There's nothing in there. There's no CO2 hooked up, and it is in air pump mode. So you might have heard that air pump kick on there for a second, but it's showing 75, 0 psi. And that's basically it. So let's cancel out of that fermentation. Hit the back button, which you can't see, which is kind of tricky. Make sure you kind of know about where to touch it. If you're not sure, just dance around it. You'll find it. Are you sure you want to exit? Yes. Let's get out of there. All right, so we'll go back into fermentation because there is more options besides creating a process. Again, that's master mode that allows you to create a custom process. If we arrow down, there are built-in options for lager and ale fermentations. Option 1 on the menu is a 3-stage lager fermentation. If we look at what this is, if I click accept, you see how it's got the 3 stages like I talked about before, and it tells you what it's fermenting at. So for this lager, stage 1 is 54 degrees for 10 days at 14 psi. And then 57 for 3 days at 16 psi, and I'm going to crash cool at 37 for 1 day at 16 psi. And then you can accept that, and it will ferment, and it will follow those stages. This is kind of where I have my first bit of feedback for iGulu, and I've noticed this not only on the lager profiles, but the ale profiles. The benefits of pressure fermentation is it allows you to raise the temperature up beyond what you would normally do for yeast and still have it come out as a very clean and tasty beer. I'm not sure I understand why iGulu keeps their fermentation profiles at regular fermentation temperature, but still puts the yeast under pressure. Then you're not getting the benefit of a faster fermentation, and the pressure benefits don't really seem to be having an impact. So the good news with master mode, though, you can overcome this, create your own profiles, and we'll talk about an example here in a little bit. All right, so let's go back. So we got our lager 3-stage, lager 2-stage, similar profile, but only 2 stages instead of 3. We go down to the ale 3-stage, ale 2-stage, and again, those are beer profiles. You should be familiar with those if you go through those. Let's go another one. They have a cider option, and if we click on it, you can see it looks like they've got it set for a 3-stage fermentation, 64 degrees for 10 days at 22 psi, so pretty high pressure there. They're going to crash cool it at 37 for 1 day at 22. And if you'll notice, they set a 3rd stage now, 37 for 2 days at 10 psi. So they're crash cooling it on that 2nd stage to make sure that CO2 really absorbs, and they're recapturing as much of that as possible, but they don't want it to be over-carbonated, so they're dropping the pressure to 10 psi so it takes in that carbonation without over-carbonating it and being a little bit more efficient with the carbonation. I think it's a great schedule. I think it's a great idea. Now again, because they're putting the pressure up to 22 psi, you could ferment that out comfortably at 80, not 64, and it would still come out very clean, and your fermentation schedule would be much faster than 10 days. We're talking 5 or 6. It should about cut it in half. Let's look at the next option. So we got cider, white wine. This is a new one. I haven't made wine on the iGulu yet, but I know a lot of people are excited to do that. Let's take a look at that fermentation schedule. So similar, 61 degrees for 15 days at 22 psi, and then they crash cool at 37 at 22 psi, and then 37 for 6 days at 10. So similar idea, they're capturing as much of that carbonation as possible and then allowing the pressure to come out so it doesn't over-carbonate. And it looks like this would be a sparkling white wine. They have an option for mead. I like that. Similar profile. They're really using that third stage on the carbonation, on the fermentation schedule to make sure it's not over-carbonated. I think that's a great idea. And we're back to create process. Okay, so let's go back and to our main menu. So we've already gone through all the fermentation menu. Let's see what other options we have here. We have the cooler option, and if you guys have an an F1, you should be familiar with this. Now with the S1, it allows you to choose in menu if you want to do CO2 mode or air mode. The S1 is different in that since the CO2 system is actually a separate accessory, there's a switch on the back of the S1 that allows you to turn on and off air mode. So just keep that in mind. So because I have it on air mode right now, you can see at the top of the screen there, if I hit check, it's going to warn me that dispensing via air mode, you need to make sure you're consuming the beverage within 24 hours. This is very critical for beer. Oxygen post-fermentation is the enemy of beer. If you are serving the keg out with beer, A, you're going to lose carbonation. B, you're going to start to stale it because the oxygen is going to interact with the beer. It's better to serve it with CO2. Now, if you don't have the CO2 and you're going to drink it within 24 hours, there is no issue. It will taste just fine. But if you're going to serve it on air mode, have a pint one night, wait 3 or 4 nights, then have another one, you're going to notice a very big difference in the flavor, and you're probably not going to like it. So just keep that in mind. Let's go back. We got cooler again and kombucha. So they have a kombucha option. We've made kombucha several times on the iGulu, and it comes out very, very nice. Let's see what that schedule looks like. See, and with the kombucha, it's interesting. They actually have it pushed to 82 degrees, 2 psi. You do not want to ferment kombucha under pressure. Now, on stage 2, where they crash cool it, at that point, you should have pulled your mushroom out, your SCOBY out of the beverage, and then it crash cools it and then carbonates it using CO2. Here's another criticism of this, and I don't know why they did this. You have your fermentation schedules as an option on the menu. It's the very, very first thing. Why kombucha isn't in that menu with the cider and the white wine, I don't know. It could just be an afterthought. It could just be so people know they do it. I'm not sure. My brain, the way it works, that just seems a bit disorganized, and I wish they would put it under the fermentation menu with the rest of the fermentation profiles. They may have a good reason for that, but let me know your thoughts on that. So moving beyond kombucha, we have your bottling option. Now this mode works with the equal pressure bottle filler kit that you can get, which has the 2 bottles. We've done a review on that. You can check that link below for that kind of review and tutorial on how to use that. This basically, especially if you're using CO2, allows you to pressurize both the kegs and the bottles and do a equal pressure fill to minimize the foam that's on there. To be honest, when I've been filling bottles, I actually just use the cooler mode under CO2. It kind of accomplishes the same thing. What's nice about this is you don't have to go through the menus and settings. It's a very quick setting. If you pop a keg in there that's ready to be bottle filled, you pop it in, hit that option. You don't have to fuss with temperature, pressure, any of that. It'll do it automatically. So kind of a shortcut button. All right, and finally, we are down to the settings menu. Let's dive deeper into that. It gives you the option to pair a new phone, and what that is to use the phone app with your iGulu, so you can track what kind of pressure it's under, what the temperature is, how much longer it is with the fermentation. As I mentioned at the beginning of this kind of review or tutorial, I don't use the phone app very much because I don't find it to be very powerful. It's good for checking on your brew status, but as far as programming it, I find the menu at this point to be more beneficial. iGulu is constantly updating it. Their app has gotten much, much better than the way it was, say, a year ago, and they're continuing to add improvements. But until they really make it more robust, I really recommend using the main menu on your S1 or F1 to do the programming of your fermentation schedules. All right, moving on. Language, of course, select whatever language you want to have your menus in, and then units. This is where you can adjust the particular units that you're using to measure temperature and pressure depending on your region. By default, it probably comes with Celsius and bar, I believe, which is your temperature and pressure. And you can change that as an example. I've got it set on Fahrenheit because I live in the US. So we'll go ahead and select that off. And it gives you the option for Fahrenheit or Celsius. You can go and change and select which one you want. I went too far. We're going back into settings. Let's go down to units. And we can go down and change the pressure. So we go to PSI if you want to do... Oh, actually, I'm sorry. They have more than 2 options. Oh, my goodness. They have PSI. They have millipascals. Kilopascals? I am not familiar with those units of measurements. If you know what those are, please educate me, because I'm not that smart. And then, of course, bar, which I am familiar with. I'm used to bar and PSI, but these other units... I don't remember seeing those. That must have been a recent update. So make sure you keep your iGulus up to date. Upgrade, as I mentioned before at the beginning of this review or this tutorial, upgrade is where you can upgrade the software. It's really good to do that. There was an option before to do it from your phone, but recently it hasn't really worked for me. So I've always been updating it from the menu on the unit itself. And then finally, About. Usually this would have the version number of the software that you're on in most things. For some reason it doesn't. It just says it's an iGulu S1, which hopefully you already know because you own it. Thank you guys so much for watching our video on the iGulu S1 Master Mode menu. Hopefully it brought you some benefit and some value. If you've got feedback on some tweaks and changes you'd like to see iGulu make to the software, whether it's you wish there were more fermentation stages so you could really hone in on your brew, if you wish there was more granularity in the options in the menu as far as changing temperature from 2 degrees to 1 degree, whatever it may be, or if you've got some good experience and have some good schedule that you've done that you had good luck with, share it with the channel. I'll be happy to kind of share that out and make sure other iGulu users are getting the benefit of your experience. Catch you later, my friends.